like cut our heads off of our bodies, and we dissociate ourselves from our bodies so that we don't feel the pain if we have them, or so we don't feel the tension if we have it. But when you start to actually approach not just like your physical health, but also your mental health from a place of movement, like I started noticing that around the time I decided to quit my job, was that when I was practicing yoga, I was like opening up, I was learning new ways of like moving my body, different postures, but I was also like hyper aware of what was going on in my mind and how I was like responding to different challenges and these kinds of things. And it started to bring that originally what I felt like my weightlifting practice was all physical, and then I had like breath work and meditation was all mental. Then I was practicing yoga and I realized like, oh my gosh, like these can actually be one and the same thing.
Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new to this channel, my name is Philipp and this is 321 podcast. And today's guest will help us to move better. So hello, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Please introduce yourself to our greatest audience and let's see.
Yeah. So my name's Jared. I'm living here in Koh Samui for about 3 years now. And I'm a movement and a mindfulness coach. So I believe in actually bringing movement and mindfulness together, mental and physical practices. And I teach here on the island, and I also teach quite a bit online as well.
Coming up next. Hey, welcome back. So the thing is that when I first saw your, I think it was your commercial in one of the coffee shops that I'm buying.
The poster.
Yeah. And like, that's pretty cool. Then we got in touch, and then I read your story, which is pretty fascinating because you did something that a lot of people dream of, but never actually have the balls do that. So please tell me about your story.
So I'm actually gonna take a little bit of a step back because I think I know the main part of the story that you've heard. When I was very young, though, I used to wake up every morning to Enter Sandman by Metallica. Do you know that song?
Yeah.
At like 5 a.m. When I was about 12 years old, and it was my dad's workout playlist. It was the first song on his playlist, and he was always in the basement. He would blast the music at like 5 a.m. and start his workout. And after weeks of getting woken up, I just gave up. I was like, okay, I can't sleep. The music's like echoing through the whole house. I might as well go downstairs and just see what the heck he's doing. And he taught me to lift weights at like a very young age. And I really fell in love with it. I played sports in high school, and like being a little stronger obviously helps with rugby and American football. I played a little bit of ice hockey as well.
Obviously, you're a Canadian.
Yeah, exactly. I have, yeah. I'm from Toronto, Canada, by the way, originally. So when I started to get a little bit older, like in high school, kind of like between the ages of maybe 16 and 18-ish, just started to get really, really anxious. And my parents were good enough to know that, like, mental health is a very important thing. And they noticed that I was getting anxious. They noticed I was just starting to act differently. And they actually sent me to see a psychologist, a therapist, when I was I think I was 16 when I first started seeing him. And he taught me breathing exercises to help me manage my panic attacks. And he encouraged me to learn how to meditate. So he recommended a few different, like he gave me like CDs and stuff like that. We didn't really have that many meditation apps at the time. And I fell in love with that too. So in high school, I would wake up in the morning and I would sit cross-legged for about like 5 minutes, and I would practice like a breathing exercise or meditation. And it really helped me manage my panic attacks and manage my anxiety. But sitting like this was very painful. Like trying to sit cross, I wanted to look like a monk, right? But it was very painful after like 5 minutes. So I realized that when I was, going and lifting weights in the afternoon, it's like, okay, maybe I should also be working on my flexibility a little bit, which kind of encouraged me to I started Googling yoga postures and how do I sit cross-legged easier, these kinds of things. And it kind of planted a seed. So that is, I just wanted to provide some context leading up to my work before I actually got into this side of stuff, into coaching movement. So I finished my university degree in industrial design, and I immediately got a job at a large consulting firm doing user experience design. Which was really cool work. I still use those skills all the time, designing websites and applications and things like that. But the corporate life was really just kind of pulling me down a little bit. So after a couple of years of doing that work, as much as I actually really enjoyed designing apps and websites, the culture around how we were doing our work and just working for a massive corporation and doing stuff that it was interesting, but it didn't feel like my calling, so to speak. I didn't feel very passionate about it. It wasn't meaningful to me. It was interesting, but not necessarily meaningful. And the corporate life was really making me anxious again. I noticed that it was really hard for me to manage my anxiety, even with my meditation practice, my breathwork practice, all these different kinds of things. So after a couple of years, I just said, you know what? I'm still very young. I've saved up a good amount of money. I need to take a risk now, because it's only going to get harder and harder. Funny enough, they offered me a promotion, and that was the thing that was no, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. Because if I take that promotion, I'm going to feel more trapped, right? I came to Koh Samui because I have a cousin who lives here. She's been here for much longer than myself. She's one of the teachers at Lamai International School. Teacher Krista. I'm not sure if you've... Yeah, she teaches the older kids, year 3 or 4, I think, actually.
Next year.
Yeah, soon.
My son actually goes to the school.
Yeah,
that's why we.
Yeah.
Side info.
So I left that job and I came here to Koh Samui to see my cousin, and also to just kind of wrap my head around what the heck I was going to do. And I knew I wanted to do something around health and wellness because, outside of designing apps and websites, the other things I knew how to do well was lift weights. I was starting to get a better understanding of yoga practices, and I really felt as though I was good at teaching people mindfulness. What are the different attitudes behind mindfulness? How do you use things like breathwork and meditation to help clear your mind? And I knew I wanted to do something with these different skill sets I had, but I didn't know exactly what. So came to Koh Samui, and then I started doing a bit more traveling. I went to India and I did a yoga teacher training. I went to Cambodia and did a couple more meditation/yoga retreats. I came back to Koh Samui. There's actually an amazing meditation retreat here. It's more of a traditional Buddhist style. It's a silent retreat. And I was kind of doing different certification courses online the whole way. I was occasionally, teaching people for free. I did yoga classes on the beach in Lamai for free, whoever wanted to join. I just wanted to keep learning and keep sharing what I learned. And after a few years, I started to feel very confident with what I could do, and my students were seeing results. So I started doing it more professionally. I started using all the skills I had from user experience design to make myself a website.
Nice.
And I started doing more things online.
Your stuff is amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So constantly trying to improve, right? And I'm very interested in your skill set too, because it's obviously everything's about marketing now, and being able to find the people who really need what you can teach. So anyways, that very long version of my story.
That's actually perfect, because I want people to understand the incentive, that it's not something that you always be in this one person who move correctly and teaching people how to move right and build up from that. You were in the same trap like most of us, but you decided that you want to spend and actually listen to your body and to understand and give that freedom to yourself. Which is amazing, I think, because it's it feels like, you know, when we moved, it everybody said like, oh, like this is so amazing. Like I wish I could do the same. That's, you know, hearing it from people without kids, you're like, seriously, man, to just go.
Yeah.
Like literally, like you don't
start.
You just stop paying rent here, pay rent over here. That's it. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's literally.
Yeah.
So how do you actually help people to move correctly, and what exactly the things you?
I really believe, like, you know, I still think of myself sometimes as like a gym rat. Like I like to lift weights. I like to, you know, work on building muscle mass and getting stronger. But the thing I discovered when I realized, oh my gosh, I can't sit like this for more than 5 minutes, was that, or the thing I started to discover, took a long time, was that getting stronger and getting more flexible can actually be the same thing, right? It's all about being very mindful of your movement as you perform it. And also,
you here for a second?
Yeah.
For me, it's probably will be okay, but what exactly do you mean by being mindful in your movement? Like, can you give me an example?
Well, I mean, think about the opposite, being mindless of your movement. So
that's like 80% of people at the gym. They're scrolling, shanks, back to scrolling.
A lot of people think about, okay, what should I do at the gym? What's more important in movement is how do I perform the move? It almost doesn't matter what exercises you choose, or you know, what it doesn't matter what you're doing. It matters much more how you do it, right? It's quality over quantity. Most people are all sets and reps, right? How much weight can I lift? How many reps with that weight can I do?
Yeah.
But it's like they're going so fast, they've lost the quality of the form, and they're so focused on the quantity that they've lost the emphasis on the quality, right? And when you shift that awareness from quantity to quality, I think naturally the mindfulness starts to come into play, because you have to be way more focused. You have to expend a lot more mental energy to feel the movement as well as just do the movement. And then all of a sudden you start to feel the stretch and the contraction, right? And you can start to, by shifting that awareness to quality and being more mindful of what's happening as you perform the movements, I think that that's the fundamental thing that we all need to do to actually start getting more flexible, right? And that was the thing for me, is like, I was pretty strong. Like I lifted a lot of weight. I did like, it was squat, deadlift, bench press, like all day, every day, right? I loved it. I still do. But I was so tight because I was just focused on how much can I lift? How many reps can I do?
Yeah.
And I wasn't aware of, like, you know, for instance, a deadlift. Like some people are really, really strong at deadlifts, but they've got the tightest freaking hamstrings on the planet because they don't focus on how the movement's performed and how it feels at the bottom and at the top. When you notice how it feels, there's a huge stretch at the bottom of a deadlift. It's actually a huge opportunity to open up your hamstrings. And at the top, it's this contraction. And so now, like, I do deadlifts. I do them a little bit differently, but the emphasis is not just like, how strong can I get? How much weight can I lift? You know, building muscle mass. It's like, can I increase my range of motion while I'm doing this exercise? Can I really feel what muscles are supposed to be working? Can I really tune in and bring that emphasis on the quality? I'm not nearly as concerned about the quantity anymore. It seems to improve. I wouldn't say on its own. You know, you still need to do things like tracking and being mindful of training volume, that kind of stuff. But by emphasizing quality, naturally the strength builds. And at the same time, you get a little bit more flexible. You can start to work on different skills. And so, for me, it really is about bringing the element of mindfulness into the training. That for me is probably the main pillar of what it is to practice movement over just, fitness.
Yeah.
Right.
So moving forward, you just said that you focusing on mindful movement, mindful workouts. What kind of I don't know, regime or what kind of exercise do you usually use?
In my practice, personally, like I love hand balancing.
What's your pillars, let's say, for your work?
My what, sorry?
Your pillars, like what are your top 5 or
Goals?
no,
for instance?
you're like when you're working with a person, okay, obviously I understand that it's an individual if someone has a back pain or a dry knee or something like that. But let's take the average person. What do you think the top 5 exercise one should focus on?
Top 5 exercises.
Easy.
That's a I mean, I think that I will give an answer because I think it's important to like give these practical things that people could work on and start with. But to be honest with you, I don't think, again, it's not so important what it is that somebody decides to work on. I think it's how they do it, right? So if somebody comes to me with a goal that they want to, you know, get better at push-ups, we're going to work on push-ups, right? If somebody comes to me and they say they want to achieve the splits, then we're going to work towards the splits. That being said, I think building proficiency in the basic movement patterns, and we could break them down to 5. So like full range of motion, mindful pushing, and you could use push-ups to do that. Full range of motion, mindful pulling, and you could start with like a body weight row, or sometimes people will call it an Australian row because you go down under and plop, right? You can do it on a table. So full range of motion pulling. For your core, like lots of twisting. There's many different variations of twisting exercises. I like banded twists or medicine ball throws, things like that. Throw a medicine ball against the wall. Very mindful of how the core twists and turns, how that relates to movement of the spine. Full range of motion, squatting. I think squatting is an absolutely essential pattern. You don't have to have lots of weight on your back. Just being able to sit in like a comfortable, the bottom of the squat, like it's designed to be a passive position we can all sit in, but very few people can actually do that and relax there.
Like the Portal said that we fucked it up when he invented the chair.
Yeah, exactly, right? The furniture is really like, it's comfortable, but it kind of has screwed us up for sure. And then definitely like lunging and walking patterns. Like human beings are bipedal, right? It's one of the really unique things about being human is that we walk around on 2 legs. Most of the movement patterns we encounter on a daily basis are like standing patterns. So, you know, practicing things like walking lunges, that kind of stuff. So pushing, pulling, twisting, squatting, walking, lunging.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
What's my favorite?
Yeah, because you were talking about balance.
I mentioned handstands and hand balancing. So, I mean, you could kind of argue that hand balancing is sort of like an overhead push. But I do love hand balancing. I don't necessarily think that everybody needs to do it. But, you know, when I started Googling those yoga postures and wanting to sit cross-legged, what started popping up online and on my YouTube channels and my social media feeds was yogis doing really incredible handstands. And I thought it just looked amazing, right? Not only did it, it was a really great example of strength, but also flexibility and focus and balance. And it was so many elements combined into one, which is what really drew me to it. And I think it's a great example of movement training. When you see somebody do like an amazing press to handstand, it's sort of just like, I feel like most people, when they see that, they grasp the concept of what it means to practice movement over just fitness, right? Many different elements or aspects of fitness combined into a single skill. So I love hand balancing. I do a lot of it. I'm working towards my one-arm handstand right now, which I'm not actually so concerned about actually achieving it. I just love the process of like doing it.
It's great if you can relate to the process.
Oh yeah.
It's frustrating.
That's the thing, is if you're focused on just this end goal, and this applies to anything, right? Like it doesn't matter if you're talking about movement or any other goal you've set yourself for yourself. Like if all you're focused on is the goal itself, but you're not enjoying every step to get there, it's going to be frustrating, especially if it's something like a one-arm handstand where it's just going to take you years to achieve. For most people anyway, some people achieve it really quickly. But if you're not enjoying that process, then it's going to get frustrating. But if you set a goal and then you kind of like put it to the side and just focus on the here and now, that element of mindfulness again, right? Then if you fall in love with the process, it's just about what's happening now and noticing growth happening almost on its own, right? So I love that process. I love applying it to hand balancing. But I mean, my practice is actually really, really varied. There's a lot of variety intentionally.
How's your schedule look like in terms of your own?
I do strength training right now. I'm doing more strength specific training about 3 times a week that does relate to skills like the one-arm handstand, one-arm chin-ups. I injured my knee a little while ago, so I'm working back to a dragon squat on both sides. I do a little bit of deadlifting and like a little bit of weightlifting still, but not nearly as much as I used to. So 3 days a week, strength training. 2 or 3 days a week is just like generalized movement and kind of like skills training. So I'm trying to expose myself to new things. So I've been doing Muay Thai for a few months now. I mean, we're here in Thailand. Yeah, and there's some amazing patterns in Muay Thai, and it's just a lot of fun. Great way to...
It's amazing. Honestly, yeah, it's amazing. I've been doing Muay Thai when I was a kid, actually, and I got back here because of Liam, but it's totally different. Like, here they're just having fun. Like, either you get hit in the face any once in a while, but still, it's a playful thing.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, for example, capoeira. Capoeira, it's not well, for me, it was always the balance in between the folklore and the culture and the movement. And I think the movement community benefited a lot from capoeiristas because there's like so many, pretty much every good mover today, you can see back there that he at some point studied capoeira for a whole time period, because they treated, I had like this master in London, Master Ponchaninho, and at some point he just said like, yeah, capoeira is just the 5th way of physics. Like you have the gravity, you have that and that, and like capoeira, it's one of them. It's just, it's just the way of you, like the.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And and I'm like, that's very good.
Yeah, I like that.
No sense, but it's so smart. Yeah, and so the thing is that actually when they practice it here, for example, it's just like playing, and that's what I like, because sometimes we're so goal oriented and so focused, so we forget that this inner child.
Oh yeah,
that's supposed to just dude, have fun. Like that's
yeah, enjoy it. Just you mentioned playfulness, like that's absolutely key. And did you say that your son Liam is also trying this? Yeah, like
no, I thought like it would be really cool if you want to like try this, because boys, okay, I have 2 boys, so they like kicking every day. I'm like, let's make a use of it. Like let's go and pay a professional to teach us to do it correctly. And he's so dangerous. I mean, he became so strong. Like he was like every once in a while you get punched by like a 6-year-old guy. And you're like,
yeah, because they're not holding back.
I cannot show any weakness, but again, it's we're getting there.
Yeah.
So and he said that he doesn't really like to go there. Well, obviously he was shy or something like that. And like, why don't we go, both of us? So we just started like every weekend we're going to.
That's great. Yeah,
that's super nice. Yeah.
Muay Thai, has he tried BJJ by any chance?
Not yet. We will move to Lamai soon. Then we'll join us.
So I guess like Muay Thai, because we're in Thailand, obviously is very popular, but also naturally, because Muay Thai is so popular, mixed martial arts is also getting more popular, and because mixed martial arts is more or less a combination of Muay Thai and BJJ, you're starting to see more BJJ here. That's another thing that I've been putting into my schedule a little bit. But I think it's really interesting because you mentioned furniture. Like we fucked ourselves up by putting furniture in our houses and not squatting and sitting cross-legged more often, these kinds of things. I think another way that we've kind of screwed ourselves up as human beings is, especially like very recently, is that like a little bit of playful push and shove, especially when we're kids, has been sort of shunned in our culture now. Like a lot of teachers and even parents in some cases, like they don't want their kids to like do rough and tumble play. But it's so important for all our development to do that, to play in a very physical manner, not just on our own, but with other people. And this is a realization I've had in my own practice, is that, when I was younger, I was lifting weights and I was like playing football and rugby and all these kinds of things, like a lot of rough, not violent, but like rough physical play with other kids. And it was a huge source of stress relief. And it was also a really good chance for me, not only to understand myself and my own body better, but how you interact with other people. And then, when I removed that from my life, so a lot of my anxiety started coming back. But now, I manage it through my movement practice. But what I've noticed is doing stuff like Muay Thai and BJJ is like, it's an incredible stress relief, not only because of the physical exertion, but also because of like the playful manner, and you're interacting with other. So you get the benefit of physical exercise, you get the benefit of social interaction, and it's just like a very playful sport. So I think it's great that you've put your son into some of these sports, because it's really important for their development mentally as well as physically. And I bet you any money he grows up to be, a much better social person as well as like a mover because of it. So I think more young kids need to embrace like rough and tumble kinds of play. It's really important. But then as adults too, we should probably embrace it, especially if we lacked it.
Yeah, it feel like there is this limit in people today, and I got this huge feedback. I was on the American Ninja Warrior format, so I was on the Israeli American Warrior for like several seasons, and the thing is that I got to finals like pretty much every season. And most of the people, like most of the competitors, let's call them, in that final was like literally most of them like half of my age.
Oh, okay.
And,
wow.
And when I got like, because when the show goes, you get like noticed, and like a micro celeb in your region, all right?
About how old were you when you were doing this?
Well, I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
So I started when I was 30. I think the first season I was 36.
36. Okay. Yeah.
And I was in a horrible shape. Like I had to transition. Like I made a huge transition since then, because
How much training did you do before?
Honestly, none. I mean,
oh, really?
I'm climbing, so I had this advantage of like upper body, but I was not there like on the first season. I wasn't there. I fell like in the semifinals, but I got as a tester to the finals, and I finished the final road. And I would not do the super final. It was super hard. I was not in the good shape back then.
Okay.
But then I kind of started to transition like all my lifestyle, because we just like when I moved to London to work, and then I said, okay, I'm not doing any sugar anymore. And then I removed carbs, and then I started then I back to Israel. Then I started doing intermittent fasting, and I think I'm like doing it for 3 or 4 years already. Feel absolutely amazing. I think that was the thing that I was missing, because I never paid attention. Okay, I graduated from sport university. I know how to build a program. I know how to build an athlete. I know how to do pretty much everything nutrition-wise as well. But what they teach you in school, it's not exactly what working for most of us. So some people will need to be on let's say, low carbs, high protein, which is the most common, I think, diet. but no one actually test something else. And they just doing it. Like I can see people, like even my friends, my colleagues who still train, I can see what they ask for their clients to eat, and I'm like, you really sure you wanted to eat all? I mean, yeah. And that's the constant, game when we kind of first of all, when we get into a certain age, we say like, okay, I'm old enough for this shit. I'll just sit on the couch.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So that's the feedbacks that I got from after the show. I'm like, yeah, you're really good. And for me, it felt like so weird. Like, yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm 40, so what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm still moving, I'm still playing, and when I'm going to the gym, I'm not going to the gym to look better. And that my last podcast was about exact that.
Yeah.
Exactly about that. We were talking about aesthetic versus athletic, because a lot of us focus on aesthetics. Why? Because it's easier, because it's instant. Like you get the pump, you see yourself, you're happy, you lost. But it's such misleading information. It's like taking a selfie, because then you can position yourself in the ideal state.
Yeah.
And then the next mirror you will see, you will not look the same way. And then you will what? You will be disappointed. Like what just happened? Yeah. And that's something that can affect people on the mental and state. And most of us can, like, we don't know how to handle it. And then we get frustrated. Yeah. That's why I saw like your approach when you actually not even focusing on the quantity. Yeah. You just trying to enjoy the process. You get that over time you see that you can do more. And the thing is, when you increase the range of your mobility, you pretty much you double up your strength, because now you have more range in the
there is actually there's that optimal relationship between the length a muscle can get to and its contractile force. So like if you're I was talking about deadlifts, like if your hamstrings can lengthen a little bit more, they will also be able to contract easier too. So it's called a length tension relationship. There's an optimal relationship between strength and flexibility that they complement each other. Now there are not optimal, like if you get too flexible, then you start to lose strength. If you get too tense, I don't want to say strong, but if you get too tense, then that's obviously going to impact your flexibility too. But yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of people that come to me and they have flexibility based goals, like they want to work on the splits, they're surprised to see how much strength oriented work I'll put in their program. Like if somebody wants to do the splits, you need really strong glutes, you need strong hip flexors, like even your quadriceps. Like building strength, if you are mindful of how you do it, will contribute to flexibility. They're really the same thing. It's kind of like two sides of the same coin. I really like that. I wanted to go back to that topic you had in that last podcast, the aesthetic versus athletic. Like that, I think also has been a big shift in my own mindset too. Like when I first started, it was about how much I could lift. And then it was also about like, I wanted to be bigger. I wanted to look stronger. I did want to hold a certain kind of aesthetic. And that, I don't know if you've ever felt that, but I definitely did feel that like, shit, I don't look as good as I looked yesterday kind of thing, or like, it's a tough thing.
Exactly. And it's like you're always chasing the pump. And it's never ending story, because then you get bigger, then you get pumped, and you're bigger again. And the pump is gone, and now you.
Yeah, the pump only lasts like an hour, so it's unfortunate when like the next hour you're like, oh crap, I need to get a pump again.
Yeah, I started to feel it here, like, because here most of the gyms, you don't have any air cons and stuff, so you like probably take your t-shirt off, and suddenly I was like, oh wow, what's that game? I'm like, do you care? Sense do you care about the game? Like, it's a tricky thing.
I wanted to ask, I kind of interested in that topic again, aesthetic versus athletic. Like, I think we have a pretty clear picture when we talk about aesthetic. We mean the way that we look, maybe muscle mass, maybe how lean we are, this kind of thing. When you say athletic, how would you say, like, how would the training look, or what's the intention behind it?
I never felt like a super athletic guy. And I get, when the first season came up, for the Ninja Warrior. I came to the audition. Everybody was fucking huge.
Yeah.
And I stand outside and I can see people doing like handstands and all that stuff. And the jargon, like the way they talk, they're like, yeah, it's a physique, it's not a beach body, blah, blah, blah. I literally took out my phone and called my friends, like, I think I'm not in the right place because I'm not a big guy and I don't think this whole thing of competition gonna work out for me.
Okay.
Until we get to the actual physical auditions. And then I see that they don't know how to use their body.
Yeah.
They're great.
They're
They're
just
huge.
big.
They look amazing.
Yeah.
And they even do handstand balance. I couldn't do that back there.
Yeah.
I mean, but then like simple tasks, in my opinion, like monkey bars, moving, using your shoulder, have the flexibility enough, have the coordination, for fuck's sake. You just need to go straight in the line. It wasn't a big deal. Like just walking through a slack line. I mean, okay, just get to the other side. Okay, you moving. Yeah, you cannot walk like you're walking on the, on the solid floor.
Yeah.
But yeah, use your hands, like balance it a little bit. It's fine. I mean, you don't get injured walking on your fingers. Yeah, you're supposed to have some strength in your fingers as well.
Yeah, yeah.
And climbing a rope, like, oh, okay, we've been kids, we've been doing it all. We can climb well. So yeah, use your like I don't know, legs to kind of support you if you need it. Yeah. And out of 5 huge guys, like I had like the most advantage. And then I started to understand that like, so it's good. I mean, I'm gonna go. I'm going, my friend. I'm like, yeah, good. It's good.
Yeah.
Good. So that's what I call athletic, because if you have this amazing body but you cannot use it, like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And if you focused on having just gains, yeah, it's probably better than sitting on a couch. That's for sure. But you can see, and probably you see this all the time. You can see this transition of people who've been in the fitness industry for like 10, 15 years, coming to you and say, hey, how do I do a handstand? I've been training like 20 years. I'm coaching that and that, and I cannot actually use my body. And they have an amazing body. Like the class we had, Saturday, like people look amazing. Yeah. Most of them kind of slow to adopt the new patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yeah, so that's what I call athletic. Athletic is like being athletic, being able to use your body in not only like the pattern way of life. Yeah, actually have this variety of movement.
I heard this term not that long ago, and I've really grown to like it. Physical intelligence.
Oh yeah.
So it really speaks to, it's not just about how strong you are or how much weight you can lift. Again, that sort of quantity based mindset, but it's about how can you like adapt to different kinds of physical challenges and how many different movements and how many what's the variety of different physical challenges that you can take on or problems that you can solve. So like, when you did the Ninja Warrior stuff, like that's a lot of like climbing and hanging and obstacle type challenges. And I'm sure there was obstacles there that you had probably not encountered or seen or trained for, but
never in your life. Especially the first season, we had no idea what's going on.
Right.
We literally see the road. By the way, Roy was the one who showed us it for the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's
very cool. Yeah.
That's how I know this guy.
Okay, gotcha.
And then we see someone going through.
Yeah.
And most of them fail.
Okay.
Like, seriously.
Yeah.
And then you go back. And like 5 hours later, it's supposed to pass it. So that's the only time we cannot touch. So it's all new for you, and you might be able to see someone trying it in advance, but it doesn't really help you that much because we're all kind of different. And yeah, so this way of going through things for the first time, but being able to respond, that's the beauty. Like, that's what I like. That's what I think I went to acrobatics first time in my life when I was 34 because I realized I cannot do a backflip. And trying to learn backflip and when you're 34, it's hard.
Yeah.
Because all your survival instincts up until this point trying to tell you it's not a great idea to jump and try to roll over your
man.
We never done this, and it's not a great idea. You know, there is like 34 years of reasons, like
34 years of reasons. I like that.
Why not?
Yeah.
So it's hard. But once you're doing those patterns, while you're learning new skills, I can see a direct correlation when it helps me to be more focused in my work. It helps me to learn new skills in design, in other practice, in marketing. I start read faster, like I'm more focused.
Yeah.
Because all those neural connections, that's the way you develop them.
Yeah.
Like you can jungle for 5 minutes a day. Try it. Like jungle 5 minutes a day and see how you just became smarter and focused. It's simple.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's another way in which, like, we've been talking about these different ways we've kind of screwed ourselves up in these days. We talked about furniture, and then we talked about like shunning like rough and tumble physical play. I think another big one is that these days we pretend like we're only here, like this is who we are, but we forget the fact that this only exists because of this, right? So we try and like cut our heads off of our bodies, and we dissociate ourselves from our bodies so that we don't feel the pain if we have them, or so we don't feel the tension if we have it. But when you start to actually approach not just like your physical health, but also your mental health from a place of movement, like I started noticing that around the time I decided to quit my job, was that when I was practicing yoga, I was like opening up, I was learning new ways of like moving my body, different postures, but I was also like hyper aware of what was going on in my mind and how I was like responding to different challenges and these kinds of things. And it started to bring that originally what I felt like my weightlifting practice was all physical, and then I had like breath work and meditation was all mental. Then I was practicing yoga, and I realized like, oh my gosh, like these can actually be one and the same things, right?
In the yoga where you need to be, like you literally torturing yourself and like, honestly, and you have this old lady next to you, like having zero problem with what you're trying to achieve. And that's how you train your mind to kind of remove that friction, remove the resistance. And
physical training is also like it's neurological training too, right? And tasks like juggling, it's very obvious. Like you need to focus so much, and there's the hand-eye coordination. That's the word I was looking for. The hand-eye coordination, and like funny enough, like I'm actually terrible at juggling, but I've tried it a handful of times. Pun intended, I guess. But what I notice is like, if you do it for long enough, it's like, oh my God, my arms are so tired right now. Like I need to give me like some ping pong balls. These ones are too heavy or something like. But it is like it. That's what I love about movement training is it's not just the physical, it's the mental side as well, and it's really the merger of the two. And I think it's so critical in today's age that we start thinking about our mental health and our physical health as actually one thing. It means there's fewer things we have to do to take care of ourselves. But also I think it's a really good chance to just change what it means to be a healthy person as well. It doesn't just mean fit and strong and muscular, but it means skilled, it means adaptable. So yeah.
Healthy person is not someone who is not sick. It's way more than that.
Yeah.
That's not something I'm saying. It's actually my wife podcasted.
Oh yeah.
Her last guest said that. And I'm like, well, that's good.
I like that, yeah.
One last thing, breathing. You also have a lot of breathing guidance on your website, I think.
Yeah, so
and so on. Yeah, sure. You have a lot. You should definitely check his.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll plug myself in a moment, my website and everything. But yes, I do really believe in the practice of breath work and in journaling practice as well. These two things have been really transformative for me. It's very difficult for me to sit and close my eyes and to, meditate in a more traditional sense. I shouldn't say it's difficult, because that kind of collapses the whole, the basic premise of meditation. But there's so many different ways to meditate. Like some of the original ones from Buddhism, they said, you can meditate sitting, you can meditate laying down, you can meditate walking. And when I learned that, when I went to this yoga retreat here in Koh Samui, a traditional Buddhist retreat, when I discovered that meditation could happen while you were walking, I also discovered it could happen when you're doing just about anything. It's a mindset, it's an attitude, not necessarily a thing you do. So these days what I've been teaching is more of like movement and mindfulness integrated together as one practice. Once my students get, a bit more familiar with the general concepts behind movement training and how it differs from fitness, then I start to introduce them to, are you aware of how your breathing changes while you move? These kinds of things. Are you aware of the thoughts that are going through your head? Because it impacts how you move. If you're doing something new and you're like, fuck, I suck at this. You're not going to get better.
Some workouts you get there and you like, better just go home.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if you cannot change that vibe.
Yeah. And it's something I'm really trying my best to do while I'm practicing new things. I notice like the one thing my trainers always tell me when I go to Muay Thai is relax.
Right?
Because I'm so serious. I'm trying too hard, right?
So
I want to be good at it, right? And I think as beginners, that happens naturally. When we start anything new, we want to be good at it.
And they also tell you you're thinking too much, right?
Yeah, all the time.
No, stop thinking.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a being thing.
I cannot relax in this position, and then kind of need to think my way around.
I think it's easier said than done, but when we try something new, it's about embracing just being a beginner first and foremost. It's like when you try something new, you're gonna suck at it, and that's totally fine. And almost embracing that and just doing it with a smile on your face anyways makes it so much easier, so much more playful, so much more fun, and you get better at it, right?
That's like Jack will call it blue white belt mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so important, right?
Yeah, it just
and Ito, who I think we both like a lot, Ito Portal, he says often, as soon as you get good at something, that's exactly when you need to start doing something else, right? Like if you feel like you're mastering something, do something you've never tried before. But taking a step back, like, so yes, I try to integrate like breath work into movement practice more these days, but I also do believe it's an incredible standalone practice. So I actually got into movement because of breath work initially. Like I was having panic attacks, and my therapist pointed out, how aware are you of what's going on in your body and around you when these panic attacks happen? And I didn't really know how to answer that question at first, but once he had asked me that, I noticed when I had the next panic attacks, just like, I'm all here.
Yeah.
Everything's happening here. I'm panicking about panicking, right? But as soon as I just went, oh, it got me out of here and down here a little bit. And then once I got down here a little bit, it was easier to kind of get out of my head. And actually the first technique I used that helped me subside the panic attacks completely was 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can feel, and one of them was always my breathing. 2 things, usually by the time I got to the 2 and 1, it was already gone.
Yeah.
But 2 things that you can, what were the last ones? 2 things you can smell and 1 thing you can taste. So you go through all 5 senses, and it just, all of a sudden you are present and you're not worried about anything anymore. You're not living here. You get kind of into your body and your senses, and then you get out into the world. And it worked like a charm every time. So that's more of almost kind of a meditation practice in a sense, but the breathing helped me relax a little bit enough that I could become aware of things outside of myself, and that subsided the panic attacks. And it was enough for me to go, okay, number one, this practice works. It's worth continuing to explore. And number two, maybe I should find out how I couldn't sit long enough to practice this for more than a few minutes. And that was kind of when everything started for me. So yes, I love breath work. I do teach it. I do have a breath work program and a journaling program for those who are interested on my website. You can go to evolvewithjared.com, EVOLVE with Jared, JARED.com. That's my plug.
Don't worry about it. We have all the links, obviously, by the bottom of the podcast or whatever media you're listening. Just go through the notes or go through the comments and so on. So, well, I think it's a great way to kind of finish. And since this podcast called 3, 2, 1, it's kind of a call to action. And I usually ask my guests, I always ask my guests those 3 questions by the end. And what 3 stands for, and I will repeat it after, don't worry about it. 3 stands for 3 things that you think can improve people's life in general. So share your. Then 2 things, it's kind of a true 2 practice that you think can. So, and 1 is 1 thing they should start today. So let's start with the 3 things that you think will help our people, like listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of improve their lives.
Move a little bit every day, and quality over quantity.
Yeah.
Be aware of your breathing, either while you're practicing that movement or just take a break at some point whenever you feel like you need it. Just become aware of your breathing and the quality of the breathing. And 3, eat real food. Not processed stuff. Eat real food. Yeah. It'll make a huge difference in how you feel. We didn't talk about nutrition much, but just real food, grown out of the ground or right from an animal, just something that's real. So that's the 3 things. That's the 3 things. 2 practices or maybe routines or books that you would like to kind of share or... Oh, okay. I mean, I'm going to, again, obviously I'm a movement coach, so I'm really going to emphasize it. Routines, movement. So it doesn't have to be handstands, but find some way of moving your body that you really love. Like I tell all of my students this. Some of my students just fall in love with some like salsa, some kind of dance, right? Or jumping rope, or some of them love hand balancing like me. Some of them like animal movement. Some of them discover Muay Thai, or some of them, one of my students discovered Tai Chi. He absolutely fell in love with Tai Chi.
That's amazing.
Yeah, something you can do anywhere, anytime. Like it doesn't need some specific kind of equipment or something, just some way of moving your body that you love. And once you do that, it becomes easy to do that like little bit of movement every day.
Yeah.
So that's one practice, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The other practice is definitely journaling. I recommend that people spend like, even if it's just a few minutes a day, either usually in the morning or in the evening is when it works best for people. But spend a few minutes journaling, and it could literally be about anything. It's really interesting to just take a pen and paper and start writing and notice what comes out. I think journaling is a really, really helpful tool to understand ourselves, but slow things down. Like usually our thoughts move like this, and when you write, it just forces you to slow down. So those are the 2. Yeah.
One thing to start today.
Just move more. Find that way of moving that you love and just do it. Yeah.
That's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for watching it until this point. I really hope you had some benefit out of it. By the way, if you do have a benefit out of it, feel free to subscribe, like, follow us on the social media. All the links are below. You can also see the previous episodes and so on. So thank you so much and have a good day. Ciao. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.